a highly educated son of a revered Protestant religious leader, became a beast and massacred his own people. The story of Jonas Savimbi, as narrated by Richard Mwanga. Jonas Savimbi was born in 1934 in Angolan province of Moshiko. He was the son of a local railway station master and a preacher. He grew up in Chileso village, Bia province. Savimbi was educated in mission schools and later attended the University of Lisbon, where he studied law and political science. Jonas Savimbi, a PhD holder, shocked many with his ability to speak 7 languages fluently. He used the languages as his bait to seek military support from across the globe. In 1960s, the educated Savimbi came back to Angola and soon became a leader of the National Liberation Front of Angola, FNLA. Savimbi led the FNLA in the War of Independence against the Portuguese. He was a brilliant strategist and a charismatic leader. His forces were successful in many battles. Savimbi forged alliances with other anti-colonial groups to form UNITA and eventually gained control of much of northern Angola. In 1975, Angola achieved independence, but Savimbi was not granted leadership as he expected. Agostinho Neto became the president. Savimbi was embroiled in a new conflict with the Marxist-Leninist People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, that leaned towards the Soviet Union and Cuba. In 1975, the war between the FNLA and MPLA began. Savimbi led the FNLA against the MPLA forces. The conflict quickly escalated into a full-scale civil war. The son of a preacher had become a beast. For 20 years, the people sliced their fellow countrymen's throat, with Savimbi at the center of the conflict. He was granted military support to massacre his own people, and he did it well. While in the forest, Jonas Savimbi, the king of guerrilla warfare, had unmatchable financial backing to sustain his extravagant party life. He drank and made merry as his people fought and anguished in pain. Just like a cat, Savimbi had many lives. Reports of Savimbi's death were circulated over 15 times, and each moment Savimbi would reappear to massacre his own people. In 1991, a peace process began and Savimbi agreed to a ceasefire. He signed a peace agreement with the MPLA. A multi-party election was held and Eduardo dos Santos had 49%, while Savimbi had 40%. Muammar Gaddafi, Kofi Annan, and Nelson Mandela pleaded with the two leaders to form a coalition government, with Eduardo dos Santos as the president and Savimbi as the deputy president. Savimbi declined, and shortly later, he went back to the forest with his soldiers, expecting backup from America. He attacked his people, burnt vegetation in what is called the scorched earth policy. At one point, he attacked a bus with 53 passengers on board and burnt all the 53 passengers to death. The one-time savior had become the eater of his own people. Unknown to Savimbi, Eduardo dos Santos was a darling to America. Savimbi was abandoned. His soldiers lacked basic necessities to sustain the war. His planes and war tanks were grounded. He had to move from place to place on a boat. In 2001, Savimbi called for a negotiation with dos Santos, but dos Santos declined. Savimbi's days were numbered. The frail, sickly, and poor Savimbi had no place to hide. In February 2002, Savimbi was killed in a battle with the Angolan army. He was shot 15 times, but the beast managed to sustain the war for 4 hours before he succumbed. His death marked the end of civil war in Angola and the beginning of a new era. His body was buried in a forest like a wild beast. After 17 years, his body was exhumed and given a befitting burial by his UNITA party. None of the state officials attended the burial. This is the story of Jonas Savimbi, as narrated by Richard Mwanga.